Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to continue with our series on ancient history, and we have been talking about the history of Egypt. In today's video we're going to talk about the process of mummification. We'll talk about the irrigation of the fields, and we'll talk about the Book of the Dead, something called the negative confession. For this we have several sources, but the main ones are, in this case, that we are going to use the histories of Herodotus, and we are going to use also the book written or called Geography of Strabo. And for this great historian, Strabo tells us regarding the floods and how the Egyptians took advantage of it when the Nile, the waters of the Nile, used to overflow the fields. He tells us that the valley was covered completely with water, with the exception, of course, of the areas where there was people, inhabited areas. Of course, this kind of terrain was of a higher proportion than the rest of the fields, and he tells us that most of the cities, you could look from the far distance and you could think that all these villages and cities were like small islands, because all of them were surrounded by water. He tells us that for 40 days during the summer it was like this, all flooded, and after that in 60 days the plain was entirely exposed, because at the same way the level of water rose, the same way the level of water decreased. And in 60 days after this, the level of water went down and dried up. So the sooner the land was dry, the sooner, in this case, the farmers used to start plowing and sowing the fields. And he tells us that, in fact, there's the other part of the country above the delta of the Nile was irrigated in the same manner, except that, according to him, the river flows in a straight channel. But as we can see from this description from Strabo, he clearly tells us the way the Egyptians took advantage of the flooding of the Nile in order to use it as a way to irrigate their fields and to plow and sow and have an excellent harvest, and in this case production of food. Now, regarding the Book of the Dead, this is a very important text. First of all, we should talk about the mummification. When someone died, someone passed away, there were at least three ways of mummification, in this case described by the historian Herodotus. He is considered the first historian, serious historian in history, and that's funny, historian in history. So according to his histories, when he was in Egypt, he described the mummification process and for whom had this privilege of being mummified. Of course, the top one, the elite, the pharaohs, the generals, the noble people, they had the most expensive and the best way of mummification. In this case, he tells us that they brought the corpse, and of course he tells and describes for us how they used to wash and prepare the body. They used an instrument, and with that instrument they used to pull the rain through the nostrils, and then later on they used to use other substances in order to clear out the rest of the brain. And he describes for us how later on, of course, they put drugs inside the skull in order to drain completely all the interior of the skull. Then he tells us that the embalmers used to they made a cut on the side, and then they used to take out all the organs, and then they used to rinse and clear completely, washing the body internally with wine. In this case, it was a special wine that was used for this purpose. After that, he tells us, by the way, that the wine was palm wine for this purpose. And again, then after that they used to use aromatics in order to clean completely the body inside, and they filled the cavity, the empty cavity, with the purest bruise of myrrh. And then they also used cassia and other sort of spices, with the exception of frankincense. And of course the body was prepared with this extreme care and with all these spices that was required for the mummification process. After that, the body was placed in a natrum, which was hydrated sodium carbonate, for 70 days, no more, no less. It was specific days, and when the time was completed, 70 days, they used to then of course remove all of these carbohydrate that was the body was covered, and then after that they used to of course wash the body, and they wrap it around with clean fine linen completely from head to toe. Later on he tells us that they smear over the body with gum, and he tells us that that was used generally by the Egyptians instead of using glue. And after that they gave the body back to the people in charge, that were in this case supposed to place the body in a coffin, because the same way there were some people working with the embalming process, there were other people that were working with the coffin according to the requirements or the specifications of the family. They shaped a specific coffin for this person with the outside, of course, of the wood. There was like shape of a face of a man, and that kind of resembled the deceased. And of course they fastened the case and placed it in a sepulchral chamber. And this coffin was placed upright against the wall, and that was the way the pharaohs and the generals and the nobles used to embalm, or in this case how the whole body was mummified and preserved for the rich people. Now Herodotus describes for us another way of embalming the body. There was another way in which the experts, they took syringes and they filled it with oil made from cedar tree, and they injected this substance in the abdomen, and they tells us that after this they waited again the same period of time, the 70 days, and they describes the Herodotus described for us that this substance was so powerful, so strong, that after this time they used to make a small incision and let the oil just go out, and with this substance all the internal organs were also in this case taken out of the body, because this substance turned out all the internal organs into liquid, and it was easy to take them out. Before that, after they did this injection, they used to cover the whole body with this substance of, as I mentioned before, hydrated sodium carbonate for the whole 70 days. They removed that, they made the incision, let this substance go out, and at the end, what do we have? An empty body and a consumed totally skin, meaning at the end you only get like bones and flesh, and they used to give the body back to the family. And now there is another method, the third one, that was for the poor people. If you had no money, you were no one, no resources, no way to pay for this expensive way, simply according to Herodotus, this method was simply the people used to rinse the body. They take out the intestines and let the body lie in natrum the 70 days. After that, the body was given back to the family. Nothing else was done. That's for the poor people. So we have here 3 methods of embalming for the rich, super rich, the pharaoh, and the other ones, middle class and the poorer class. Now Herodotus described for us that there were certain cases in which either Egyptian or foreigners, if you drown in the Nile River or a crocodile ate you alive or something like that, and in this case you were treated with special care. You were not considered not human anymore, but you attained certain state of divinity or special status in which no one could touch the body. The only ones authorized were the priests of the Nile. They used to take the body and they themselves used to prepare and embalm this body. It doesn't matter if you were rich or poor or foreigner or Egyptian. If you were eaten by a crocodile or you drowned in the Nile and died, they will take care of you. They will embalm the body, preserve it, and they will place this body in a special chamber, because that was like something, you became like someone special after if you died this way. Now this was the mummification process. As I mentioned, something very special in connection with the Egyptian religion. They believed that in the afterlife, the immortality of the soul, and that the body was needed in this case for the afterlife with all your treasures and everything. Now when you died, as I mentioned in the previous video, you were taken and they will guide you to face the god of the dead, the god of the underworld, Osiris. And there you will be judged, and if you did good things, of course you'll be rewarded enough. If not, you will be simply you will stop from existence. And to help these rich people, to help the deceased to pass this test, in which of course your whole life, whatever you did on earth, was recited in front of the god, and they will determine if you were a just, righteous person or just a crook. In this case, there was a book. The Book of the Dead was supposed to help you out, because this book contained details about your life, special formulas, incantation, prayer songs that used to reveal the details about your life, and this was supposed to help you to pass the trial. And there is something called the negative confession that the Book of the Dead contained, in this case, to help you when you had to face the god Osiris. And I will just simply mention a few things, a small part of this negative confession, so you can have an idea of the Egyptian religion or belief, and a fragment, of course, of the Book of the Dead. So this fragment reads like this: "Homage to thee, O great god Osiris! I have come to thee, O my lord. I have brought myself hither that I might behold thy beauties. In truth I have come to thee. I have brought Ma'at to thee." Ma'at means truth in this case. "And I have expelled wickedness from thee. I have not done evil to mankind. I have not oppressed the members of my family. I have not wrought evil in the place of right and truth. I have had no knowledge of worthless men. I had not brought forward my name for exaltation to honors. I have not ill-treated servants." And like that it continues for a little bit more. "I have not done murder. I have made no one to weep. I have made no man to suffer hunger. And I am," at the end it ended like this: "I am pure, I am pure, I am pure, I am pure." To show to the God, look, I haven't done nothing wrong. My life, my whole life completely, I was pure, doing always what was right. So this was a way to appeal to the God and show, look, this person is a righteous one. You have to award him with paradise, with a good life. So this is just simply so you could have an idea about the content of the Book of the Dead and this negative confession, that if we think about it, we find these similar ideas or concepts in later books such as the Bible, for example, and these kind of negative things that people should avoid, like of course avoiding sin and not committing bad things against the poor or the orphan, or do not commit murder, and these kind of things. We have it already before in the Egyptian religion and the Book of the Dead. And we have seen the irrigation process described by historian Strabo. We have seen the mummification process described by Herodotus, and we have seen in this case a fragment of the Book of the Dead, the negative confession that everyone was supposed to face the god of the underworld, Osiris, and your fate was supposed to be determined by him, either paradise or the eternal destruction. You simply cease from existence. So this is the end of the video. I hope that the content was interesting for you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.